It's time again for the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast with Dr. John Dentico. The mission of our podcast is to provide 21st century leadership training for a talent-driven world. We help organizations implement strategies and practices designed to attract, hire, engage, and retain top talent while mitigating the effects of burnout. Our guests are experts in various fields of organizational dynamics, including, but not limited to, leadership, management, communication, and coaching. They bring a world of knowledge and solutions to our viewers and listeners. I am sincerely grateful for their participation and ideas. So let's dive in. And if you enjoy our podcast, please like, share, and subscribe. We genuinely appreciate your support. Hello and welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. I am Dr. John Dentico, your host. Today, my guest on the podcast is Tamzin Hall. Tamzin is founder of the Neurodiversity Academy, committed to ensuring workplaces thrive through empowering and supporting their neurodivergent staff. With over 25 years of leadership experience, Tamzin is not only an accomplished author and qualified performance psychology coach, but also a passionate advocate for neurodiversity. As a dyslexic herself, she leads by example, inspiring others to embrace their differences and thrive. I'm truly happy to have her here with me today. Hello, Tamzin. How are you this day?
Hello, I am so good, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you. Really looking forward to this presentation, to this time together. Several weeks ago, I was at a conference with nurse practitioners, and I noticed that one of them had done a presentation on neurodiversity. The only problem was it was the day I was traveling,
Oh,
so I missed it. Didn't realize it till I got there. It's a topic that's becoming more and more prevalent and getting a lot more views, if you will. And so I think it's really timely that you and I will talk about that today. So let me begin by asking you this question. Can you define what you mean by neurodiversity and perhaps maybe give us some examples?
complicated, isn't it? It can be so complicated. Actually, things don't need to be complicated. The way that I describe neurodiversity to anybody who doesn't really know what it is, it covers things like ADHD, autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia, bipolar, Tourette's, anything like that. But it's basically a neurological condition, something in our brain that means that it's wired slightly differently. So there's some things and there's some behaviors that neurodivergent folk do that we can't help doing. It's something, just the way our brain is, it's the way our brain is wired. And it's nothing that can be changed. We just need to learn to navigate and to have a great life and navigate with these neurodiversities. So for me, as you said, I am dyslexic. So I have this brain that just can't do certain things. And throughout my life, I've learned to live with it and to thrive, even though I can't do things like spell um, or read words properly, or kind of all of that stuff, which I'm sure we're going to come on.
Ah, great. Interesting. Very interesting to me. So let me ask this other question is jumping up point. In terms of the introduction or the movement, if you will, of neurodiversity into the workplace, what are in a sense, the guiding principles of the movement? What are you helping uh, will happen, or what are you trying to do in terms of introducing neurodiversity in a greater level in the workplace?
So what I find is, I'm in the UK. So in the UK, what I find is that if a child is lucky enough to go to a supportive school, they are supported through primary school, junior school, into college, university, with support in place for autism, ADHD, dyslexia, anything that comes under that banner. But what I have found happens a lot is, for some reason, we think, and we, the royal we, the society, workplaces, we think that when these individuals leave education, that their neurodiversity disappears or they don't need any more help with it or support with it. Of course, that isn't the case. There's these amazing individuals who have so much to bring and so much to give to organizations, but they're struggling internally. They're struggling quietly. They're trying to show up in a what we call a neurotypical world with so many internal challenges and internal struggles. And what happens is when we expect people to turn up and to be a certain way and act a certain way and to work a certain way, but they're feeling a bit like a fish out of water, of course, that's going to lead to so much negativity, so much shame and self doubt, and so many feelings of I don't belong here, of I'm not good enough, of I'm not enough, of negative emotions. And in the workplace, when we have negative emotions and we feel anxiety, depression, or all those things that I've just shared, it leads to underperformance, disengagement, sick days, moving jobs, which cost the business money. So I find it slightly crazy that I'm having to wave this flag in 2024 and say, actually, workplaces, we need to do more because there's people out there that are really suffering who could be absolutely fantastic and who could be game changing for your organization, but we're ignoring them and we're letting them suffer. And we need to do more. We need to do more. Society needs to do more. Organizations need to do more because just everything changes when we do.
Let's peel that onion back a little
Peel
bit
it,
more, okay?
peel it
Okay.
back.
When you say organizations need to do more, let's talk about the more. Are we talking about the ability of the organization to recognize that a person who has joined them in their organization is in fact neurodiverse and extend to them perhaps a different understanding of how they made up, if you will, with the organization and its goals? What is the more to you?
So it's really interesting you asked this question because in the UK, our employees, they legally they don't have to share their neurodiversity, which does make it quite difficult for the business and for the business owner and the leader because they're potentially dealing with something that they don't know is even going on. So in the UK, neurodiversity is classed as a disability, and a disability is anything that's impacting someone's life for 12 months or more. They don't really have to disclose it. So it can be quite tricky. And when I say have an inclusive environment where it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what's going on for you, it doesn't matter what internal struggles you face as an employee, we're here to support. And that can be things such as having quiet rooms, offering everybody headsets, saying to people, if noise bothers you and you get distracted easily, let's find you a desk that's in the corner where you're safe and you're away from the noise and the hustle and bustle. Let's give people the time away from their desks that they need. Let's look at maybe flexible starting times, but let's offer it to everybody. The work that I do isn't just about the neurodivergent individual because sometimes we're working with people who either don't know they have a neurodiversity or because of so much that has been going on in their life, in their past, they don't actually want to bring it to work. How I find it works best, and the more to me, is by saying to everybody, we are inclusive. Whoever you are, we will support you and we will help you and we will understand you and we will give you what you need, okay, to a certain extent, because sometimes there's things that are impossible, but we will work with you to really help you to have a working environment that enables you to thrive. That to me is the more.
Okay. I want to come back to this. I want to go to another question that I have, and then I want to circle back to this because something is brewing in my head here about, and believe me, I'm not trying to fix this problem as much as I'm giving a personal perspective on it. So let's just go to a different question. Let's talk about, let's go this place first, because if I'm a company, if I'm an organization, a business, I got to get things done.
Mhm.
I have got to, we're here to make money. Oh, yeah. We're here to provide a culture, a place, I'd like to think, where people come to do their best work every day. That kind of an environment. Okay, fine. But I need people who can do things that help the organization as a whole, as a system, work more effectively. Don't forget that word. That's the leadership part. I believe in effectiveness and being more efficient. That's the management side of it. So I want the two sides of the same coin. They need each other. They work together, leadership and management. So let's talk about that piece and then let's circle back. Tell me about the unique capabilities, the possibilities that our neurodivergent individual can bring to an organization.
So everybody's different, of course. Everybody's different, and how autism shows up in a positive way for one person might be different for someone else. So the answer I'm going to give you is a very broad range of all of the things that neurodivergent individuals can bring, or some of the things that neurodivergent individuals can bring to the workplace, because I do absolutely echo what you're saying is we have staff, they have to do what they're being paid to do. The business has to survive. The leaders have targets they have to meet. And I don't forget that in any of this because that's really important to the business. We can't be paying staff who aren't doing what they need to be doing. So there's certainly that element in everything that I talk about. But if you have a neurodivergent individual who is supported, so do you want me to give you a bit of a story? Should we talk
Oh, I
about
would love, yeah,
me? Yeah.
perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
If I look at me, I'm dyslexic. So I struggle with reading, with writing, with my short term memory. I've got no spatial awareness and I don't know my lefts and my rights. So that's all the challenges that I have. And I will write an email and I have to put it probably through a 4 or 5 step process to make sure it is understandable, that I haven't missed out words because I'm great at just missing out words, that I've spelt everything correctly because sometimes I spell things in such a way that even spell check doesn't pick up. And I need to make sure that all my grammar is correct. So there's lots of steps that I have to take. Now, they're the, I suppose, the challenges that I have. But what I bring to if I was in employment, what I bring to my employer is my people skills. I can have conversations with everybody and anybody. I am I'm very big picture thinking, so I can see things, big picture things.
More strategic in a sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Creative, innovative, very resilient. If I get a no, that's fine. We'll move on. And just an all-round supportive, very intuitive individual. So dyslexic people have so much bring I think 40% of self-made millionaires are dyslexic. It's that kind of that big picture, that logical thinking that we can get from here to here. We're very resilient. And if somebody just looked at those, what I said at the beginning, all of those negatives that resulted in lots of negative comments and lots of, especially at school, people telling me I wasn't good enough. If I had let that I'm not enough stop me, I wouldn't be here today. If I hadn't have people that believe in me, I wouldn't be here today. And I think if we can just see past and say, okay, you can't spell, your grammar's horrendous, you miss out words, but that's okay. There's amazing things like Grammarly and spell check and immersive reader and all these things that we can support you with, because actually what you do bring is so much more. But sometimes it's very difficult to see past all of those mistakes, because who wants to send out an email to a prospective customer with mistakes in? So, from a leader's perspective, it's sometimes quite difficult to see past those mistakes. But when we do, so much positives. If we look at autism, ADHD, that amazing, relentless, logical thinking, that real focus, that real, I'm going to get it done regardless. It's fascinating how much neurodivergent individuals can bring to a role, but the hurdles they have to go through, if they have a manager who can see past an ADHD, for example, potentially constantly turning up late because they have time blindness, they have no idea of time. But if we can see past that and support their hyper focus and the way that their brains take something and research it and just immerse themselves in it and understand it, is phenomenal. Blows my mind. So much can be brought to an organization if we just see past those initial challenges.
It seems to me, and now here comes, we're going to circle back to where we go. We have this capability of individuals who are neurodiverse, and we want to do several things here. Number one, we not only want to encourage them, but we're looking for the opportunity to help them. I want to say make, but to help them become contributing members of society, okay, and care for themselves at the same time. I think that's a fair statement. And it seems to me that recognizing that in the UK the law says you don't have to tell anybody you're neurodivergent. Specific capabilities to help us with certain issues and problems in the company, to help us as part of this, our organization, if we can target what it is that they bring to the issues and problems we face. In other words, I want to take the problem or the issue and made it up to this individual's specific capability. Now there's a cohesion here. There's an ability to really do something. The problem I see is that unless CEOs do that, unless they create that space for them, and know, this is the tricky part, and know that individual is neurodiverse, then it's a lot harder, if you will, to mate those two things together, because I can't make allocation with people like yourself to help me bring those folks into the mix, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I find that while we're trying to respect and honor them, we may, and this is just my perspective, we may be making it more difficult to actually bring them into a workplace. Because if you hire someone, you don't necessarily expect them to be neurodiverse. You don't expect that. But if I know that and I'm okay with that, then what can I do to make allocation and to help that person become more involved in our workplace? I'd like to hear your comment on that.
I totally understand what you're saying, and I hear it a lot. I do hear it a lot by organizations who say, how do I do this? And it's really simple. We create a culture where we offer support and adjustments, and we include everybody regardless of what they have going on. And we not only say we are inclusive, we show it. It's very easy to be a recognized employer for neurodiversity. It's very easy to say we are and show and be inclusive, neuro inclusive, and say this is what we do. Have your neurodiversity policy on your website. Attract neurodivergent individuals. Have adjustments for interviews and make it very obvious that you support neurodiversity, because when we say we are an inclusive employer and we show it, and we have things from we talk about on social media, on our website, we have quiet zones for our neurodivergent staff. We have fidget toys, and we have noise cancelling headsets, and we do all this, but show it. Neurodivergent individuals, when they're looking for jobs, they will be attracted to companies like that. And I have a couple of clients I've been working with, and I haven't been working with them for long, but they have a waiting list. They receive emails from neurodivergent individuals saying, I want to come and work with you because of everything you're doing. I see it, and your staff rave about you. Your reviews on all the review sites are phenomenal. I want to work with you because you are so inclusive. And I know you're not just ticking a box, you're showing. So I think we obviously can't ask in an interview, are you autistic? Are you ADHD? But by showing that we don't care what you are, who you are, we value you, we see you, we want you because of everything that you can bring, and we have all of these strategies and all of this support to support everybody. That's when it changes. That's when we really attract the right people.
Point well taken. I point well taken. I guess my mind is thinking, and it's just, again, this is just my frame of reference. If I can make specific adjustments for an individual, I can help them even more.
Yes.
You see what I mean? So to say we're welcoming and open and create this space for everyone to thrive. But if someone's having difficulty in an area, I can be more specific about reaching out to them and helping them. That's all I'm saying here.
Yeah.
I want to afford them the best opportunity to contribute. It's funny because I want to mention something here. I talk about this every once in a while, but the leadership model I started developing, the collaborative leadership model I started developing 30 years ago, has one basis for existence. One. Not 20, not 5, not 7, not 57. One. And it's based on one thing and one thing only, and that's contribution. Contribution.
Yeah.
So the idea being, I take a problem and I set it down in front of people and I say, here's our problem. Here's the issue we're struggling with. Who can help? Who would like to contribute? See what I mean? So it is a very non-judgmental way of looking at leadership and saying, yeah, and it's not this. Let me tell you what it's not. Here's the problem. This is what I think we should do. And okay, has anybody got any ideas now? No, that's not it. That is not it. That's I'm going to get my will no matter what. But if I'm trying to create this environment of creativity and contribution, I just put the problem down and say, you help me. You tell me how the way we think we can handle this. And maybe, as I'm thinking right now, maybe that's how it's done, in the sense that you can be that open and it doesn't matter where the contribution comes from. We'll recognize And again, we put it all on the table and then we can sort it out and figure out where do we want to go from here, what makes sense, that kind of a thing. That to me is a much more strategic thinking perspective than just doing strategic planning.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I love that. I love that. And I think just going back to your point, I'm a real fan of getting to know everybody individually. And I think when we have that inclusive culture and we show that it doesn't matter what you have going on, we'll support you, everybody's more open. Everybody's prepared to say, do you know what? Actually, I am autistic, I am ADHD, I have this going on, because they know they're going to be supported. So it does really encourage that openness and that just those conversations. And I love contribution. I think I said earlier, I like things as simple as possible. We don't need to overcomplicate it. Doesn't that just that one thing that we're bringing to the table is contribution. This is what's going on. What are your ideas? Let's talk about it. I think a culture and an environment like that is the absolute culture and environment that neurodivergent individuals need to be part of. They don't need to be part of that. Let's be honest, who does need to be part of a this is the problem, this is my answer, go off and do it? Nobody needs to be part of that. But especially for neurodivergent individuals, they need that company that you're talking about, that real contribution. Everybody has a voice. Everybody has the opportunity to contribute. That is absolutely the way forward.
It's interesting. I never, in my wildest imagination, I never saw that 30 years. It just made sense to me that, but 30 years ago, I never saw it as a doorway into neurodiversity. Never. I just mentioned this prior to another guest that one of the best parts of having this podcast is that people teach me. I learn more than I think most people learn from me, but that's okay. It's just very interesting. There's a lot going on in my head right now, but we'll move on here for the next question because I'm very curious about this. A piece of information you sent to me earlier, and I want to talk about this because I think it's really important. And you mentioned in the workup before we actually did this podcast that some individuals opt to work 100% from home, and that this can be detrimental to an individual. Can you go down that road a little bit and explain that a bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. And there'll probably be people out there thinking, no, I just want to work from home. What are you talking about? I just need to work from home.
And let me interject here just for a second. We're talking about neurodiverse people working 100% from home, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it's a really odd balance, and it's a lot. I'm having these conversations a lot, as I'm sure you are, especially coming out of COVID, where we almost gave, because everybody had to work from home if they could, we started to create these really safe places and these comfort zones where everybody just wanted to be at home. Because if you have a neurodivergent individual who struggles with socializing and being in social environments, of course they want to work from home because that's where they feel safe. But what happens is when we work from home all of the time and we work and we live and we don't go out, is a lot of negative mental health problems arising. We are social animals, we as humans. There's a reason why we feel better if we're feeling really down and things aren't going our way. There's a reason why when we go out for a coffee with somebody, we feel so much better. Or when we meet a friend for a walk, we feel so much better because we're social animals. And that human connection is what we need. So, with neurodivergent individuals, and I briefly touched on it, but I'll just recap if that's okay. If, and a lot of the time this happens, we have somebody who's neurodivergent, they will have gone through school, college, university, education with potentially quite a lot of negative experiences, whether it was from teachers or peers or whoever, a lot, I'm hearing a lot of really negative things. And that leads to self-doubt, low self-confidence, not feeling, good enough. And when we feel all of those negative things and we feel potentially embarrassment or shame, we've lost that connection. So we don't feel connected. And when we're at home, and if we're working from home all of the time, and maybe we're somebody that doesn't want to have our cameras on, so we're constantly just in front of a computer screen and we don't ever see someone else, it almost encourages those negative feelings because we're not feeling connected. We don't feel that connection. And I do understand because it's quieter at home. There's no noise, there's no bright lights. We can control our temperature. We can take breaks when we want to. We don't have that anxiety because some people find it really anxious to go into an office. And so yes, there are benefits, but we're not having that connection and we're not having that seeing people, connecting with people, feeling part of a team. And that is so important for, I think I mentioned to you when we had our pre catch up, my dissertation that I did was on play in the workplace and how having fun leads to high performance in the workplace and the kind of the link between play and fun. And what I found was that when people feel connected and feel part of a team, that's when they're happy. And when they're happy, they're high performing. And so there's a real link between being connected. And if we're working from home in silo alone, we're missing out on that connection. So I think there's a real place for some neurodivergent individuals to have the option to work from home. Absolutely. What I'm seeing is where I'm seeing the most effectiveness, where the individual feels connected, part of something, is where maybe they're going into work 1 or 2 days a week, or maybe a day every other week, where they have a bit of flexibility in terms of they don't have to travel in rush hour. They can start later, they can leave later, they can have shorter days, and they have somebody that meets them for coffee beforehand. You know what it's like when you go into somewhere that is a bit new and you get all that anxiety. If they have a manager or a friend that meets them for a coffee and they walk into the office together, that really helps. If we can provide them with a desk where they have a certain desk, they know where they're going to be sitting, they know what their day looks like, they're prepared for everything, they can wear noise cancelling headsets, they have the breaks, and they get that connection and they get to speak to people, that's when their confidence lifts and they feel, I'm part of something, I'm valued, and I'm included. And that's really important.
I agree. In the end, it's always about the people.
Always about the
And
people.
it's always about the people. And I have a tendency of saying nothing in the world will ever replace human liaison. A handshake is as valuable now as it's ever been, maybe more so. It's very interesting. Anyway, I want to thank you for this time. I appreciate it so very much. You've given me so much to think about. And again, I'm sitting here dazed. I'm dazed because never in my wildest imagination did I ever think that the model I was developing, as I mentioned earlier, is a platform, a doorway into neurodiversity because it hinders on one thing, contribution. And that's what companies care about, whether they admit it or not. They care about what can we do to get, what can you do for me? And what can we do together? How do we keep in business? How do we keep our profit margin high? And how do we move this whole organization forward? in a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world that we live in. VUCA. We live in this VUCA world. How do we do that? And I think more and more people are going to be looking for help that may have, in a sense, stood outside what the normal hiring practices of organizations into a much more robust ability to deal with the future, and bringing neurodiverse people into that mix in a greater way, I think maybe it probably is one of the solutions. There's no magic bullet. There's no silver bullet. There's no magic bullet. But you get a piece here, you get a piece there, you get a piece over here, you put it together, and all of a sudden it becomes something that's, to use the old cliche, greater than the sum of the parts. We'll look forward to seeing how that all works itself out and what the future holds. It gets very interesting from here on out. Listen, Tamzin, thank you so very much for your time today. I appreciate your wisdom and your work in trying to make the world a better place.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
having
you
me.
so very much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
And you.